Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining me on this episode where I have the pleasure of interviewing Destiny Thomas, an educator, speaker, and purpose driven mindset coach, as well as the owner of Speak Destiny, where she coaches clients through mindset reframing in order for them to identify their purpose. If you followed us here or on the blog for any length of time, you know that we consider the victim mentality to be one of the worst things to a person's ability to live a good life. One of the things that I loved about Destiny is that she is the embodiment of taking personal responsibility for what you can and improving your situation. In this conversation, we discuss what health issue caused her a major scare and what she did to use that scare as motivation to turn her life around. Don't forget to listen to the end. After the interview, I'll answer a question from the audience. This time, I'll answer a question about learning to be happy. Hey, Destiny, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Um, I have to tell you, I've ever since our pre-interview conversation, you're one of the few stories that I really remember all the details just because it was so interesting.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good to
Um,
know.
yeah, no, I mean, you really overcame a lot, but let me not get ahead of myself. Why
Okay.
don't you give us a short intro about your story?
Okay. So the short intro about my story. So back in 2017, around February 2017, I was on vacation with my husband and a group of friends. It was about, was it six of us? No, actually eight of us, for his 30th birthday trip. And we were in a hotel room, and I started feeling like increased, like intense heart palpitations. Even at the time, I didn't realize they were palpitations. I just felt like I just had this like pounding, and I kind of had this like, it felt like my heart rate was beating extremely fast. And then I had my husband check, and I'm like, feel this, like, doesn't it feel like it's extra fast? And then I like felt like I was having shortness of breath, but I don't know if, even now I still don't know if I kind of worried myself into kind of having shortness of breath, because you know how powerful our mind is, of course, when things are
Right.
going wrong and that have never occurred before. So long story short, we end up calling the I guess downstairs area, and they have like in the resort they have like a medical physician you see, and then they were seeing me, and they said, well, we recommend that she go to the hospital. Now let me tell you, we're from the States, and healthcare here is not amazing. However, the hospitals are set up a lot uh, different than it was in Jamaica. So we went to this hospital that there didn't even have like computers to check us in. There was no, we paid, it was like a $20 bill, which was, I mean, it was amazing, that
Oh,
part. But it was like, we were in this waiting area, and I'm
yeah.
just sitting waiting for like what felt like
Okay.
hours. And then I started vomiting, and then I got nervous because I know that vomiting is a sign of heart attack as well. So I'm like, all these things run through my head. Again, backstory. My dad has a heart condition, and his father had a heart condition, which he ended up passing from and had a heart attack. So all in my head, I'm like thinking like, okay, two generations, and then my maternal grandmother passed from a heart attack. So of course, all of those negative things are, going through my
Right.
mind. And so they are like, I finally get seen, if you want to call it that. And they drew blood, they took a urine sample. I started vomiting, and then they're like, oh, it seems like she has like a stomach virus. And they were asking me what I had eaten, and I had shared. And the only thing I narrowed it down to that I had eaten that nobody else had eaten was oxtails. So,
Was
everybody else
what?
had oxtails, which is,
Oh,
yeah, like it's a Jamaican dish, like Caribbean dish. But
yep.
and at that time I was eating meat, but you know,
No,
fast
that's
forward to that
cool.
July,
Yeah,
I became
yeah.
vegetarian because of all this. So yes, I had oxtails, and so I'm like thinking that, okay, maybe this is what is impacting me and causing all these random extreme symptoms. So I get released from the hospital maybe after a couple hours, because we were waiting for a long time. A few days later, probably 2 or 3 days later, we come back to the States. I live in Maryland. In Maryland, I go to a doctor. It was urgent care because my doctor was not open at that time. It was after hours. And the doctor, assesses me, and she says, well, we don't really see anything wrong. Your EKGs seem fine. It seems as though, she said you tested for E. coli, which is like a bacterial, and I guess something
Right.
from something I had eaten. So that kind of matched up with what they said in Jamaica when they said stomach bug. So I'm like, okay, what is this from? Is this from the oxtails? Like, why? I'm like, I guess I'm the only one experiencing this. And then she said, it also seems like there's some anxiety with that. So she prescribes me some prescription, and she's like, this will kill the E. coli and help with that. And then she gives me something for anxiety. I'm like, well, I don't think this is, anxiety, because it's not like, I don't feel anxious. Like, these are real symptoms. And I know anxiety feels, of course, it's very real, but I just was telling her, I'm like, all of a sudden for me to just be anxious about what's going on with me, it just didn't add up. And I kept like
While you're on
trying.
vacation, especially, right?
Go ahead.
Especially when you're on vacation. I mean, it's not
Right,
as though
right,
you're in the middle
right.
of work.
And so,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm kind of like, that doesn't, kind of just seemed like she was just kind of like writing it off, like, just, okay, this is what it is. So, I took the prescription. I was taking, I actually didn't take the one for anxiety, but I did take the one for E. coli. And what I noticed was when I was taking it, my heart rate became more increased, and I would get the same
Oh,
feelings and the intensity. And then I read the bottle, and it says that it's a stimulant, and can cause increased heart rate and all that stuff. So of course, then I get more nervous, and I'm like, okay, am I doing something that's going to make this worse? Then it started with the hospital visits. I would wake up in the middle of the night with a heart rate of like 173, 174, literally like laying down, not doing anything. And I wake my husband up, and like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I feel like I can't breathe. And then that kind of continued on for like, a few months at a time. Certain times I would be at work, I would feel lightheaded. I would have increased heart rates at work. I went to different doctors. I went to the hospital a few times. I've been, two times went in an ambulance, once in New Jersey, once in Maryland. And just seeing like my son have to watch me, get taken in an ambulance, that feeling was just, I just was so scared and nervous, not knowing like, is this going to be the last time? Is he going to, remember, and this going to scar him that he had to, watch this, occur? Like, I asked him, like, can I just walk there? Because I'm like, I know it's something like, but can I just like walk? Because, I don't know, just when you're a parent, you think more about the impact that anything and everything has on them, and how, what memories last.
of course. How old was your son at this time?
He was 2 at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
During this process, he turned 3 in that August, but when it first started, he was 2, and he had turned 3 that August. So different hospital visits at night. I now have family out here in Maryland, my sisters, but at that time, my sisters weren't out here. So every time we did a hospital visit, it was, my husband would come and my son would have to come, and we'd be there sometimes 4, 5, 6 in the morning. My husband would bring his work stuff, and I would be up there. At some points I would try to work. He's like, no, you need to just relax. He's like, I'll text your manager for you, like, you need to just so I'm grateful that I had somebody who was there like literally every single time with me, and my husband, my son would just crawl in the hospital bed with me, and but they kept trying to narrow it down. They said, well, we don't see this, I had, when I went to Jamaica, they drew my blood through my hand, and it caused like a little bit of a blood clot. So, but it was what they call, I forgot the proper term, but basically it was a blood clot that was on top, like above, and not underneath, which wouldn't cause like any type of, it wouldn't travel. That's basically what they said. So they said it wasn't dangerous. But I'm like, well, still, blood clot to me doesn't sound safe. So then, they did an ultrasound like up from the blood clot, like on my arm, and then they did what was it, I think a CAT scan or X-ray, one of them, to see if I had they were checking for a blood clot in my lungs, because of the breathing and then the rapid heart rate and all the different symptoms. And then after one of the visits, the doctor said, he wrote out a referral for me to go see a cardiologist. So long story short, I'm wondering why wasn't this the first referral, but you kind of just go with what they tell you, even if you're still, but you have to always keep pushing. That's one thing I want everybody to know. Keep pushing when something's wrong. Don't just stop at what the professionals tell you. So anyway, I went to the Johns Hopkins. and I had a regular appointment, and then they scheduled another appointment to do an echocardiogram stress test. So I did the stress test, and then he took some like pictures of my heart and everything. Results came back saying I had what's called mitral valve prolapse and mitral valve regurgitation, which is, your valve, my heart valve, basically doesn't, like, I guess, close correctly, and then the blood flow from, going back and forth, it kind of regurgitates.
Yeah.
And that when it kind of gets too full, at least from my understanding, it's still a little, I guess, confusing to me, but it kind of gets, I guess, backed up, and that causes the intense heart rate and so forth. But yeah, and then that doctor, he gave me a prescription. I think it was metoprolol. And my goal, I kept saying to him, well, what do I do to, make this like better? I know there's probably no cure, like, but I prefer not to try to be on a medication that I would have to depend on and be on it for the rest of my life if I don't have to.
Right.
He said, oh, he called it a beta blocker. He's like, so this will just help. And I guess thin out your blood thinner, so to speak. And so, I went he gave me a heart monitor for 7 days. Continued throughout the months. I still was having symptoms. My dad said, why, at this point, my family was told, because at first I kept it a secret because I really had no idea. Every other day I was thinking like I was going to die. So, my dad was like, well, why is this, he was nervous. Like I said, he has heart issues, and his dad passed away from them. So he made an appointment with his cardiologist in New Jersey, Dr. Gusam, and I went to see him. He ran some tests. He also gave me a heart monitor, which was a 30-day monitor, which will capture any irregularities. And anytime I would feel pain or tightness, I could also press record on my own. And then it also picked up like irregularities on its own. So it was like carrying around like this like big old beeper kind of thing. And it, it had the stickies around your chest, just like you're getting an EKG. It was like a portable EKG almost, like, if you can think of that.
Yeah.
So, it had that done. And, by this time, like I said, I had the diagnosis. When I got the diagnosis, and was talking to a coworker of mine, this is, like I said, 3 years ago, I just broke down crying when I told her, because at that point, all I saw was like a death sentence. All I saw was, I saw my grandfather, who I, never even met because he passed before I was born. And I saw my grandmother, and I'm seeing my dad, who's battling and struggling with this on a daily basis, and how it impacts him. And I just saw it as like, here's your, you now have shortened your lifespan. And I just really became overwhelmed with like a feeling of grief, even though I wasn't grieving anything. I felt like I was like grieving like what my son, like preparing my son, or have like, do I start making different videos for like each birthday? Like all of this started clouding my head, and really kind of caused me to get to a really low point emotionally, and even physically. Like I mentioned before, I became a vegetarian in July of 2017, when I watched a documentary called What the Health, because I just wanted to, like I said, I wanted to do things and to strengthen my body, and that to me felt like that was the best way to go, the healthier route. And I never wanted to be on any prescriptions or anything. So yeah, that's pretty much how that occurred. After a little while of accepting the diagnosis and just kind of realizing that it does not have to turn out this way, and if it does, would I want to just grieve about it and be sad and think about, well, what would my son do, versus would I want to do something and leave him with something that I created? And I started changing my mindset, basically from a fixed to a growth mindset, which I've always been about, how important your mindset is with things and getting things done. But at that point, yeah, I didn't care about any of that. At that point, I just was like, this sucks. Like, I feel like I'm going to be leaving this little boy, with no mom, and just, and I've had, like 3 aunts pass away with young children, and, I know just the challenge that it is for a child. So yeah, I eventually, kind of really had to get on myself and say, girl, like, you need to wake up. This is not the end. And if it is, what are you going to do to make sure that you live it out to the best of your ability? So I had to switch and readjust and reframe my mindset to see this as new life. So it was the start of what I can create, something new. There were so many different things, kind of like how I guess people have like a bucket list. I didn't necessarily have a bucket list, and I still don't, but I had, different dreams that I and ideas that I wanted to implement, and, things that I wanted to start, that I kind of always was just like, oh, I'll do a little bit now, but this can wait. I always put things off that I guess weren't priority at that moment. But when this occurred, I said,
Mhm.
no, no, no. There's no time like now. Why not now? You need to pick up that pen and paper, laptop, whatever, and get it moving. What are you planning? If this were to happen and you were gone next week, what steps have you taken to, leave a legacy, leave something, for your son, not just in the aspect of life insurance and all that. Yes, I have that, but leave something that, you created your own, and that you did it and made it flourish, and all for him. So that's when
Yeah.
I decided to get back to, create Speak Destiny, which was an idea that I had always bounced around but never had, really started the steps and to implementing them, to implementing it. And yeah, at that point is when I really was like, look, you got to speak things into existence. I'm going to be well. I'm going to be here for my son. And you had to begin believing it. At the point when I started saying it, I didn't believe it at the time, but I had to reframe my mindset, just like you train your body when you go to a gym. You may not think you can lift something, but if you keep saying it enough and you begin doing little by little, eventually you'll get to that point. And that's what I had to do. And that's
Yeah.
what Speak Destiny is about, with shifting your mindset in order to reframe your mindset and find your true calling and your true purpose in life, and to live it out. And that's what I help others do, and that's what I do for myself. And being an example to others who just have walked in this specific journey in my life, this piece of my journey in my life, and just have been a witness to just the mental transformation that I've had to go through. And I'm grateful that I did, because again, like, when you're in that fixed mindset of, oh, this is just going to be the worst, this is all negative, everything is bad, it's really hard to get unstuck from that. And it's easy to just, view everything as hopelessness.
But to be fair, I think it's more than just the difference between fixed and growth mindset. I think that one of the things that attracted me to your story the most is the fact that when we spoke, you specifically said, I'm not a victim.
Right.
It's, that victim mentality is what breaks most people. It's what wastes their lives.
Very true.
And, you said, I took responsibility for my life and I made it what I wanted to be.
Right. And that's a decision. You have to make that decision. And for some people, I think the decision may be more challenging when they've never seen it done. Resilience is something that I feel like everyone's capable of it, but I don't think everybody necessarily has it in them, but it can be learned. And that resilience and that determination to, not be a victim, or not somebody who, even the survival mode. I understand people who say, oh, I survived this and I'm a survivor, but I don't like really referring to myself or even others as like a survivor, because a survivor is a one-time thing, in my opinion. Like, you survived it, but what did you do after that? Did you decide to thrive, or are you still surviving? Because in my
Yeah.
mind, survival mode is like when you're still trying to like doggy paddle and you're above water, you're surviving that storm, right? You're
Right.
not thriving in it. So if I take hold of just being a survivor of this certain situation, and there are numerous situations in all of our lives, not just one specific. So this heart situation, that's just one, specific situation in my specific life and my journey. And, you may have others, you may have one similar, one different, but I want people to know that the goal is not to just survive, because if the goal is survive is equivalent to like living paycheck to paycheck. Where people say like, I just want to, have all my needs met and have the, but what if you get into a situation like, let's say, for example, what we're in now? Like, are you going to just continue paycheck to paycheck, or are you going to take this time now to, utilize those skills that you have, which are $1 million skills, and, you're sitting on $1 million dreams, but are you just sleeping on them, or what are you going to do with them? So let's change the mentality from just surviving to, my goal is to thrive. Even with health, you don't want to just survive. If you're eating McDonald's every day, Burger King every day, Subway every day,
Oh, no,
yeah, you're
definitely not.
surviving. But you're not really, your body is not thriving, so at one point it will
No, no.
you know, not really do you well. So just,
So here's my question to you. Do you
okay.
think, in your experience, that it's just a question of making a decision, or is there more to it than that?
I think yes, and okay, to your question, yes, it is as simple as making a decision, but it doesn't end there. You once you make the decision, you have to act on it. So, you can make, like, okay, it's like New Year's resolutions. Everybody, not everybody, but you see a lot of posts on social media. Everybody's like,
Yeah,
my New Year's resolution is I'm going to start going to the gym. And they're saying this like in October, November. Well, you made the
yeah.
decision. One, there's no reason stopping you from doing it right this minute versus waiting until January 1st. Two, you can claim it and say it, but, you know, if you don't put the works in, your statement is kind of null and void. Like, the the scripture, faith without works is dead. If you don't actually do the work, whatever you're saying won't really come to fruition. So I do think it's as simple as making the decision, but once you make the decision, you need to put it into action. It's just like having a dream.
Okay. What if someone tells you, "I don't know what steps to take"?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. Sorry. What if someone tells you, "Well, you know what? I made a decision, but I don't know what steps to take. I don't know what to do." What would you tell them?
So what I would tell them, if they made the decision, and they're saying, "Oh, well, I really don't know where to start. Like, it's just so much," one of the I have these 7 specific steps, and I can actually, if you want to send to your viewers, I listed out the first 5 main steps to reframing your mindset and to just, um, you know, start implementing what you're just, once you made the decision, start implementing the strategies. So the first step I would tell them is you must silence the noise. And what that means is silence the noise from others, which is positive and negative noise, right? And the reason I say, of course, it's obvious of why I say silence the negative noise and the naysayers and the people who would doubt you, or the people who say, oh, that's stupid, that doesn't make sense, so you're not going to die from this, or you can't, that's obvious, right? So I'll explain why I say
Yeah.
silence the positive noise. The reason why I say silence the positive noise is because you have if you have too many people in your corner who are pushing you into one area, and positively, they may very well mean well, it could deter you from going to where you're actually supposed to be. So, for example, if I'm trying to realize what my true calling is and my purpose, somebody, who's a good friend or a good family member is in my corner may, try to say, you know what, you're really good with kids. I really think, yes, you should really open that daycare center. And although I feel like, I love kids, I really don't see a future with working with them every single day, But if somebody is in my ear telling me what I'm great at and hyping
Yeah.
up a specific thing and then adding on, oh, this is how much this could make. And I know in my heart, like, but I don't feel like I'll be happy with that. Like, that doesn't bring me joy. I don't feel like waking up every day I would be like, yes, I'm going over here to this daycare center, or yes, I'm going over here to this, I don't know, like nursing home, or home for the elderly. That's why it's important to silence out all the noise, because again, the positive noise from others can deter you and get you off track towards something else that could be great, but it may not be great for you. So this is a personal decision that you need to make, and in order to really hone in and to get your mind right and to focus in on the things that bring you joy, the things that you wouldn't mind doing even for free. If you could do it for free, you would. Like, if all your needs were met and you could just do this, when you really try to hone in on what it is that you're trying to do with your life and your purpose, or you're just trying to shift your mindset from negative thoughts and negative ways of thinking, the first thing I would tell anybody is to silence out the noise, both positive and negative. That's one thing a
But
lot of
okay.
people don't tend to do, because
But now here I have a question about that.
okay,
For, you, for example, you're married, right?
yes,
Okay. So, do you think, as a married person, I'm not married. Yes, this is a real question, just simply because
okay,
I don't know. All right. As a married person, though, you have responsibilities.
yes,
Forget towards your kid, because obviously that you have, but you would have that even if you're single. But you
right,
also have a responsibility towards your spouse,
right.
correct? Okay. So, do you still think that it should be a sole decision taken by you only, or that should be done together with your spouse? Like when you say silence the noise, is it silence
Mhm.
everyone except your spouse, or everyone including your spouse?
Well, when I say silence the noise, I'm talking about silence the noise from everybody. So let me do a side note for this. When you're asking about
Okay.
should the spouse be involved with the decision making for if you're switching into a different career choice or something that's impacting the household, or saying, oh yeah, I'm going to quit my job just to focus on this, then yes, that's a decision for, your whole household, like, well, your spouse, or your significant other, if it's, going to be impacting them, or they're expected to take on 100% of the finances when that wasn't what originally was occurring. Now I do believe, whichever party is making a decision, they should be heard, and it should be considered realistically. Is this something that we could do? If not, what can we cut out that can make this possible, or how can we go about it? How can I best support you while you're still working in order to make this happen? But when I'm
Right.
speaking of actually taking the time to shift and reframe your mindset, and finding your true calling and your true purpose, yes, I do mean silence out everybody, because they can, for example, my husband now works in IT, and that's not something that he didn't go to undergrad for that. He went to school for psychology. I went to school for education. And then for my master's, I went for counseling. His master's, he went for IT. His
Okay.
focus was, he wasn't a person who really wanted to focus at the moment on what he was truly passionate about. He was solely looking for what would be the most lucrative that that matches my, personality. It's not, he's an introvert, so he didn't want something where he had to like always, speak publicly all the time, or have to like, manage others and things like that. But he wanted something that he can learn the skill and make decent money with it, and have longevity in that field. So he
Right.
did literally like a Google search and said, careers for introverts. And like, he just kind of did all these little quizzes and things. And he ended up, getting a job at a university, which covered his grad school tuition. And he went and got his master's in IT. So for him, that was his, that was a decision that he made for, going forward to make decent money, a decent living, and not necessarily for following his true dreams and passion. Now he's
Hmm.
at the point where he's looking into, okay, how can I, fund my dreams and my passion? And because I now have this, I'm in this field that's,
Right.
pretty
Yeah.
decent and safe. And, I know that I'm pretty much always going to have a job, thankfully, because, IT is, not going
Oh, definitely. It's one of the
anywhere.
fields that's growing.
But right. But, and with me, one of this, like a few years ago, he said, you're like so bright. He always felt that I was not paid for my worth, especially in the education field. And, that's of course not a money making field. But he just always said, he always felt like I was kind of, with the different positions I did accept, that I should have, asked for more. I should have taken different roles and different things. And he said, IT will be perfect for you, because like, you're really smart. You communicate well with others. Just, I could see you managing a department and doing this. And that was his, that was his suggestion for, not for my purpose or follow my dreams, but just for kind of to get if you want to work in a lucrative field, like you would be perfect at this. And he was, hyping me up with it, like in a good way. Like he wasn't trying to just like, you should do this. He just was like, you really should consider it. Like these, exams. He said one of the people he worked with, they didn't even have a college degree, and they just passed the certification test, and they were making like $70,000 or $80,000, and they were 19 years old. So that's a
Wow.
field where, yeah. And when you take these Microsoft certifications and all these different things, the more certifications you have, the more marketable you are, the more they're willing to pay you. So he was just telling me like how, not simple it is, but just how, he was like, with how smart you are and how focused you are when it's time to study for something. So that's what I mean when I say like the positive noise. That to me was positive noise. Like, yeah, if I was looking for a means to an end at the time and just saying, okay, yes, if I had a solid plan, I wanted to fund my business, I would consider going into, IT, work for this amount of time in order to have the excess funds to be able to really pursue my dream and my purpose. But when you're at that point, when you're literally trying to identify, all noise needs to be silenced. And that was just my example of even a noise from your spouse. And that was positive noise. Like I said, he really believed that I can do it. He still does.
Yeah.
And if I do decide that that's something a transition I would like to make eventually or in the future, or even if something occurs and I'm no longer employed or my business suffers, that's something I will, especially because I would have a great teacher. He would let me know, he would be giving me the, tools that I need to excel in the field and excel on an exam and things like that. But when you're really trying to sit down and adjust your mindset and you're reframing your mindset, you're digging back and you're doing the work within to figure out the different ways. I have people list out the different ways where they've suffered from their mindset. What are situations you've been in where having a fixed mindset and thinking negatively and speaking negatively and speaking failure or believing things that others have spoken to you, how has that harmed you? How has that hurt your growth, your success, and things like that? So those are certain things that you can of course discuss those things with your significant other or with somebody else, but in taking that feedback or the opinions or all those things, because that's the difference. A lot of people confuse opinions with facts and feedback. So that's why I say just silence it all, because everybody is not where you need to be in that space. And so listening to others when you're trying to get to a certain point is can be detrimental to your growth process. So that's why I, in my strategies and the steps, I put number one is to silence out the noise. And that's from everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. So I hope that example cleared it up about the whole stuff, because again, positive noise is, it's great when you're just trying to, figure out a solution or get to the next, like make a decision. Like, I'm trying to leave my job. I really want to make more money. And your goal is that.
But it's still noise.
Right. Then,
right.
you
so
can listen to that at
noise,
that
but
point.
It's still noise.
Right, exactly. But if you're really trying to get down to your purpose and adjusting your mindset, you got to silence it. But again, you can listen to it when you're just trying to get to point A, point B. That's fine. If you say to a friend, I need a new job. I need to change this. I need to move out of this house. I need to do this. Of course, I'm not saying X everybody out for the rest of your life. But in this process, when you're trying to go through this transformational process, this is a personal, and you need to dig deep internally. And some of the reasons and situations you'll find, it may be to the point where it brings you to tears and you're really realizing how a certain situation at 10 years old caused you to get stuck, and you've been stuck since then mentally, and you just really believed whatever that thing is that got you stuck, and you're now trying to unravel and dig yourself out. And sometimes, of course, that may coincide with therapy. Some people may have certain things where, they also may need to, go to therapy for certain situations that they've just, buried and put a bandage on and never healed from it. But, you rip the Band-Aid off and touch it, that infection is still there. So, you got to address it. And that's why, again,
all right.
you got to identify.
So that was step one, and you have a total of 7 steps. So where would people go if they want to find out the additional 6 steps?
So where people can go is they can go to speakdestiny.com.
Okay.
Or they can subscribe. So when they subscribe, they would,
I recommend that you subscribe. Absolutely.
Yes, definitely subscribe. And also they can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at I Speak Destiny. And that's I Speak Destiny.
It'll all be in the show notes, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
We'll have the links and everything. Last question. If there was just one thing, one tip that you want to tell people, what would it be?
Ooh, that's hard to narrow down to one tip. Okay, so if there was one tip that I would want to tell people, the one tip I want to tell people is narrow down. I have like 2. Okay. Can I say the one tip I want to tell everybody is it's okay to want more. I want you to be okay and comfortable with wanting more, with growing.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's okay to do so. We always feel like we have to do it to help others. Like there has to be like somebody else has to be at the receiving end in order for us to really like need to do it. But it's like, be selfish with this. It's your time to be selfish and to care for you and to focus on you and whatever, gifts you have, especially in this time right now where a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people do have more time and more flexibility while at home. So rather than viewing this as, a time of being trapped in the house, view this as a time of being safe at home and empowered to work towards those dreams that you sat on the shelf like I did 3 years ago. So just focus on whatever that more is that you want. My second piece, which kind of coexists with this, is in order to truly identify your purpose, you have to know your why. So take this time now to really think about your why. Your why is the motivation that fuels, the purpose. So why are you doing it? That's, I know I gave two, I'm sorry, but those are the two
That's fine. They're two
pieces
good
or
ones. It's
nuggets
okay.
that I would want to leave everybody with.
That's awesome. Destiny, thank you. One of the things that I find is that it's incredible that people are open to sharing their stories. Your story is very personal. I mean, it includes your child, which I know was probably not easy in the beginning to share. And so I want to thank you for that.
Well, no problem at all. Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity.
Gladly. I think that people are able to learn a lot from you, and so all the links will be in the show notes because I definitely recommend that you go check it out and you subscribe. And for this week's question from the audience, how can you teach me how to be happy? I can't. No one can teach you to be happy. What I can do is help you achieve the things that you need to be happy. And the best part of that is that just by starting to work on achieving those things, you will feel yourself start to become happier. And how do I know this? Because I myself was the poster child for mental instability and unhappiness. This was to the point that my medical treatment team wanted me to be medicated. My own mother begged me to accept their treatment at the time. And today, even on my worst days, I have the tools necessary and the knowledge on how to use them to push through. And usually, I have a contentment in me that I did not even imagine could exist when I was younger. I can give you the tools and the knowledge you need to use these tools well. I can guide you, but you are the one who will need to do the work. You are the one who will need to live through the pain of overcoming whatever demons you may have and being happy. But if you do make that choice, I will be there every step of the way to guide you and help you push through. All of the links mentioned in the show are in the show notes. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us an honest review. Last but not least, go to our website and sign up for our newsletters, which come out twice a month, so you do not miss out on anything important.